Good morning, everybody. I am not sure if you heard me a few minutes ago. I think I was on mute. We are now recording live.
Good morning. Thank you, Sue. Good morning and welcome, members of the public and councillors, to East Devon District Council's Licensing and Enforcement Committee meeting on Wednesday, the 17th of February 2021. I am Councillor Kim Bloxham and your chair for the meeting in the absence of Councillor Joe Wibley. I would also like to welcome anyone watching the meeting via the live streaming. All participants here today are taking part remotely and the committee is being viewed online and recorded. So please bear this in mind throughout the meeting, and may I remind you to be careful of your language. May I also remind members that the Code of Conduct applies throughout this meeting. We also reserve the right to remove and disconnect any participant who is disrupting the meeting by whatever means. As this meeting is dependent on internet connection and a power supply, in the event of a break in the internet connection of a power cut, please bear with us as we try to reconnect. If we are not able to reconnect after 15 minutes, the meeting will be adjourned and reconvened at a later date. Please check the committee page on our website for further details. Accordingly, my first task this morning will be to ask a committee member to act as vice chair, just in case I experience any difficulties with the IT during the meeting. Please make sure all microphones are muted when you are not speaking to avoid any background noise levels. Please keep your points short and do not interrupt when someone is speaking. If you wish to comment, please raise your electronic hand and wait to be called. All councillors have been sent the agenda for today's meeting. Any members of the public who want to view the agenda can do so by visiting our website at www.eastdevon.gov.uk. Before commencing the meeting, with the committee's agreement, can I invite Councillor Alan Dent to act as vice chair if the need arises? Do you all agree?
Agreed.
Thank you. Lots of nodding heads. Thank you very much. We will now start the committee by doing a roll call of all members here present. Can you please now unmute your microphone, and when you hear your name, please confirm by saying present. When you have confirmed you are present, please mute your microphone again.
Okay.
Sue.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Bloxham.
Present.
Councillor Cahill.
Present.
Councillor Chapman.
Present.
Councillor Dent.
Present.
Councillor Hazard. Councillor Jarvis.
Present, thanks, Sue.
Councillor Jeffrey. Councillor Pepper. Councillor Pratt.
Present. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor. Councillor Tom Wright.
Present, Sue, thank you.
Councillor Woodward. Councillor Ragg. Okay, that's it from me, Chair. I think you have got 7 members present, so that is making you quorate.
Thank you. I can confirm we are quorate today. Agenda item 1, public speaking. There are no members of the public registered to speak. Am I right?
Yes, that's correct, Chair.
Thank you. Agenda item 2, minutes of the previous meeting. If anyone has a comment on the set of minutes from 18th of November 2020, please indicate this by raising your electronic hand. If I have no hands raised, I will take this as an indication that you all agree the minutes of the previous meeting. I don't see any electronic hands raised. Thank you. The minutes of the previous meeting are agreed. Agenda item 3, apologies. Do we have any apologies?
We only have apologies from Councillor Wibley, Chair.
Thank you. Agenda item 4, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? If anyone does have one, please raise your hand. Please remember to unmute yourselves and advise the type of interest and the reason.
Can't see hands raised, Chair.
Thank you. We move on to agenda item 5, matters of urgency. There are no matters to be dealt with urgently. Thank you. Agenda item 6, confidential or exempt items. There are no matters to be dealt with in this manner. Agenda item 7, the quarterly licensing update report. This is a report from the licensing manager. So can I invite Steve Saunders to take us through this report, please?
Yes, good morning, Chair. Good morning, members. Thank you for that. I will try and keep the my update concise and allow members to sort of ask any questions or raise any queries whatsoever. The points I would just perhaps draw some attention to are there is mention under 1.16 and also links to 4.21, some commonality with increasing work already. So we're still in the third national lockdown, and the licensing service are already experiencing quite a high level of queries and demands for new work from many businesses that want to trade outside and operate on the streets. There is some reference to pop-ups, to new vendors, and clearly it's a growth area, one of the few growth areas arising out of the pandemic. The reason for raising that is that despite the drive and many services within the council seeking to support new businesses, there may be some odds and challenges to our existing reports, in so much as certainly under the street trading policy, there is the matter that new pop-ups and businesses that may be conflicting with other local and existing businesses may be cause for consideration or even refusal. And so that is something I think we may experience in the months ahead. And it's not a case of wishing to deter entrepreneurs and businesses, but it is a fact that our existing policies do have some override on that in relation to potentially certainly unsuitable locations, but also those that may be challenging beside an established business with a similar goods. Just briefly as well, I'll touch upon the fact that taxis is mentioned clearly with the challenges to the taxi trade. It sounds like we're the only people in the world being innovative. Clearly everybody's had to adopt new approaches to work from home and remotely. Although the licensing staff have continued to develop new initiatives, and I've made reference to the fact that whilst taxi drivers still have to sign up and have their medicals, the government haven't stopped that. It's actually getting more and more difficult to get a GP practice to book those appointments. So there's an alternative in there that we're now supporting with an online process and trips into Exeter that my colleague Lucy has sort of led on really. And we just don't want to be at the stage where taxi drivers are clearly fit and able to drive, but we can't vouch for their assessment. We're not doctors and GPs. And lastly, before I go away from my promise to be concise, I wanted to mention under 3.2.1, the resolution last time at this meeting, the chair and the vice chair confirmed the resolution of writing out to 4 MPs with regard to the financial challenges being experienced by the taxi trade. Those letters went out to 2 local MPs and to Grant Shapps and the Chancellor of the Exchequer in December. And to date, there hasn't been a response to any of those letters. Some good news in that regard was, though, that East Devon District Council had supported the ARG grants, and those members of the taxi trade that applied were able to sign up and be awarded the ARG grant that was available. And that's been reflected as this council being one of those that has supported the trade in the National Trade magazine. In the pre-meeting, the chair and the vice have mentioned they may wish to revisit the lack of response from those MPs, and that may be something that's given some consideration to in this meeting or outside. They're the key points that I would raise, and of course, as ever, more than happy to accept any questions or deliberate further on those points raised.
Thank you, Steve. Firstly, I'll invite non-members to speak by raising their electronic hand. Once non-members have spoken, I'll then invite members of the committee to speak. Non-members, please indicate if you wish to speak by raising your hand. I'm just having a quick look and I'm not sure there are any non-members present at the moment anyway. Perhaps we can open it up to committee members. And I can see Councillor Maddie Chapman, Councillor Fred Gagill and Councillor Alan Dent. I'll take them in that order. Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Chair. Steve, I have concerns about opening out onto council land because of the COVID, tables and chairs, etc. Are we going to allow this in a conservation area next to listed buildings, or are we going for the wider outlook? You know, it is a bit of a concern to have these sort of events so close to listed buildings in a conservation area. Have you got any comments on that or any guidance? Thank you.
Yes, just on that point, morning, Councillor Chapman. On that respect, where an application under the Licensing Act, such as a temporary event notice or a premises application, is properly served and duly paid, our hands as officers are kind of restricted in having to accept that. Although clearly there are other services involved in that work with the street scene team and property and estates in approving the permission, and I do note that concern. Certainly there may be locations under a temporary event notice that police or environmental health have the options to object. I feel, having put this matter into the report, I think before some of these decisions come through to licensing for yourselves to potentially be at a subcommittee and be making decisions on such applications, there are some steps and processes that other services do need to consider, and it may well be, the location, as you've mentioned, being unsuitable. It may well be, that we've got outstanding coastlines, outstanding beaches, and does East Devon District Council want to open up those areas as well when we've got measures to protect certain areas as well. So I do accept that comment. I think as a committee, it would be better to have some of those questions and hurdles addressed before it actually comes through to yourself to issue licenses, if that covers that aspect.
Yes, please. Yes. I am a trifle concerned. I know street scene are sort of rushing around and sort of saying, well, we can do this, we can do that, but I am mindful that it's treading on other like the environmental health, as you were saying, conservation, it's treading on other people's toes. And I don't know if street scene are aware of this, but it could cause some problems I see coming up. So if we could get clarity, then we'll know what we're doing on licensing. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Chapman. Councillor Cahill.
Sorry, fat fingers syndrome. Yes, my questions to you, Steve, are going to be on the same lines as Councillor Chapman, as you might imagine. I'm a bit concerned because this subject matter has already come up an application to the Town Council Planning Committee as a consultee, and there were no objections from Highways, and there was no objections from the District Council Environmental Health Department, which I did find very concerning. And I do feel that there is a lack of clarity on the criteria for gaining permission for a business to use our land. And the street scene manager has got to apply for the planning permission on behalf of the applicant. It's all a little bit confusing, and perhaps you may be able to throw a more consistent light on it, or is there any criteria that is written down that we can follow? Because this application has obviously got to go before district council planning, and it's already contentious because it's in a conservation area. And I think there's a little element of, we can lose sight that, it's a different option from a bar on a Strand piazza type area to a conservation area where you have 3 hotels on that particular street. It's all conservation, even the hotels are conservation. And if we allow it to go ahead, I feel that's completely in breach of our representation on having conservation areas. So perhaps you could enlighten me a little bit further on the criteria surrounding all this.
Yeah, I thank you for that, Councillor Cagle. I may kind of be sort of stepping on the toes of street scene and property and estates, and clearly there is a process for businesses to obtain permission. One of the strange things about the Licensing Act is that it doesn't take regard to any permission to use the land. So for potentially any of us could have somebody want to run a festival in our garden or front garden, and we wouldn't have to take that into consideration under the Act. So there is an onus as a district council to have a clear policy, which I understand Street Scene have developed, and how they grant landowner permission. There are a number of factors in our policies. You're quite right that certain areas may well challenge the local plan in relation to environmental factors, and I think Exmouth Town Council has highlighted that on some seafront trading in the past. We as a licensing authority send out a consultation, and we wouldn't do that for a road or a highway unless the Highways Authority have approved it as the landowner. And that was something that was causing some of the issues with the pavement licenses. People thought it was potentially a preconceived right to put out tables and chairs. And Devon County certainly submitted one representation for a refusal. So it may be from what you're highlighting is that the process for East Devon may need to be either more transparent or more robust on that aspect before it actually comes to a licensing committee.
Thank you, Stephen. Councillor Cahill, does that answer your question? Do you want to come back?
Not wholly, but I think it's a bit of a difficult area, and I think Steve's answered the question as best he possibly can, but I still feel there's unanswered points there, but I don't feel that Steve can answer those questions, because it's probably concerning a wider aspect of the conservation, the environment and the planning. So it's a bit of a complicated one, but I think it could be a very contentious one. But it will follow its course, I'm sure.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dent, I believe you were next.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, funny enough, I'm just going to move away from slightly where we've been going. That is because I reading the reports, what concerns me is the amount of additional work being put upon our officers to get all the work done that is required by the various acts and government and everything else. I wonder if Steve could just give us an idea of the volume and type of applications that have come through on street trading, just to put some colour into it. So I know I get the general picture. I wonder if there's anything you could say to give us a bit more feel for things. Thank you.
Yes, that's a very valid question. The current demand is more along the lines of pre-application advice. So certainly on a daily basis, we're receiving almost pre-application work. So people are submitting their locations, maps, plans, business models, and one of the officers who oversees street trading is pretty much fully committed to the pre-application work, even before it come out to your local towns and parish councils on a consultation. It's very high demand. We sent out back end of last week, I think, to Cranbrook Town Council an application that came through. But where we are at the moment, just as businesses are looking to recover and start, it's the pre-application work. And I would suggest we're probably experiencing three to four traders on a daily basis, inquiring, but also putting forward their models to us. There's a higher demand, certainly on seafronts. We've always had this. And while Sidmouth Town Council chose to keep their prohibition under street trading, we're now seeing not just Exmouth seafront, but Budleigh Salterton is an increasing demand, and Seaton as well. And we're receiving certainly weekly pre-application details in relation to horse boxes, into pizza vans, pasty sellers, and the process is that if and when, or should any of those be considered suitable on seafronts, it's a precedent. The certain thing about licensing street trading is that when a precedent is set, those applicants see that other people or other traders get those licenses and permits, and that precedent's in place. So I think as a council, and going back to Councillor Cahill's question as well, that precedent has to be considered. I don't wish to go back to Councillor Cahill, and I'm conscious, Councillor Dent, you've just asked the question, but in response to both, we've taken some research with Cornwall Council, which has a number of highly significant and tradable areas, as you'd expect. We've all been there, I guess. And what Cornwall Council does is they identify their locations that are suitable, and they'll go out for tender at the start of each year, pretty much like our Property and Estates team do, and agree the suitability. I think where we are as a district council, we're seeing completely new enterprises come forward, and everywhere is a consideration. Everywhere looks, really, really open and new. And I think that's the challenge that we're facing. Certainly as a licensing team, it's the pre-application work. Just to round off, Councillor down, yesterday we had 3 applications come in for what is effectively a summer festival. We haven't come out of lockdown yet. And so 2 of the team at the moment are today engaged in going through all the plans, the notices, the risk assessments, and that will probably go out to assessment. So our work hasn't really stopped. I could probably look at giving you a certain, in fact, will be the end of the year roundup when we meet in April. So to finish off my answer, I think if I supply the volume of all licenses received and going out, that may well give you more assurance on what we're doing at the moment.
Thanks, Steve, and it'll also give us more assurance to back you if you're asking for more funds for staff and so on, because you're clearly not getting any income from pre-application inquiries. That's a cost, as well as the hours of work that go in. But thank you very much. That's been useful. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands up for Stephen, other than I was going to mention just 2 things. One, Stephen did highlight in his report the fact that we'd written to various members of Parliament and received no response. Do we as a committee wish to have a follow-up letter to those members to try and seek a response again? How does everybody feel about that?
Yes.
Councillor Jarvis can.
I think it's necessary. Regardless of who the MPs are, they need to get back to us. They need to learn that we're part of their community, and they need to at least respond or acknowledge that they've received these things. Even if they don't have the answers, acknowledgement is what counts.
Thank you. So if I make that proposal, you'll second it, I assume. Thank you.
Yes.
Do we all agree? Do we, yeah? Do we wish to try and practice on our green ticks, please? Because then we can actually practice the fact that people can use their green ticks and they stay on longer than 10 seconds that Sue was concerned about.
Okay. Can you confirm what the recommendation is then, Chair, so that people can vote?
Yes, certainly. The recommendation is to write with a follow-up communication to the members of Parliament, as we did in November, to seek a response.
I make it unanimous, Chair.
Yeah, so do I. Thank you. And secondly, I wanted to make a proposal from the chair as well, that we actually acknowledge all the work that the licensing team are doing, and saying thank you to Steve and his team for the tremendous work they're doing through challenging times. And once again, an extremely informative report. And again, if you're all in agreement, I would like that noted in the minutes.
Okay, thank you, Chair. That looks unanimous again.
Thank you. So we'll move on to agenda item 8, Pavement Licence Update Report. This is another report from the licensing manager. So can I invite Steve Saunders to take us through this report, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair, and also thank you for the last update. It's much appreciated by both myself and the team. This report is an update on that given by Henry at this committee last July. The government, as you'll be aware, had introduced a new act which moved over a streamlined application process for cafes, restaurants and pubs to put tables and chairs outside. It issued a new application fee, and working with legal and other services with Strata, we got in place a process that applicants can apply online, they can pay the fee, and this committee approved the conditions that we've now adopted. So we have the process in place. I've mentioned in the report that I think expectations were quite high for businesses around the country that it would be pretty much a process that would be rubber stamped and tables and chairs would go out pretty much anywhere. We certainly found out on the small number of applications that it's not always the case, certainly as Devon County Council and Highways have the requirement to ensure the safety of the public. If any application was unsafe, if it put members of the public at risk, it was unlikely to succeed. And so we did have a couple of applications that just didn't go ahead because of those circumstances. That aside, it will offer this spring, it will offer the opportunity for businesses to restart because of the situation with COVID and not being able to dine and operate inside quite so much. It's clear that businesses will look to adopt this and move outside again, once again, as the weather improves. So the resolution today is we had expected some more clarity from the government. We understand from the Devon districts and licensing authorities that it may well be extended into 2022. That confirmation hasn't been given at the moment. So the resolution today is really to continue the adoption that was approved last July. We are kind of duty bound by government that's been handed over as a streamlined process, and that we continue in a manner that has previously been adopted in support of businesses and those that want to put their tables and chairs out safely and in a safe manner. I have alluded to the fact that previous support was given by this committee for a temporary post, and in addition to into new work that's also since arisen through the increased taxi check-in and the taxi standards, we've costed out an option for a temporary post to address the large level administration over the coming year. at a slightly lower level instead of a scale 5, grade 4, grade 5. It would be a grade 4. Pretty much a real administrator to deal with the quick response and the quick turnaround that's required. And we feel, with that in place, it gives the team the chance to address this new and incoming work that we hadn't experienced before. So today, I am quite willing and more than happy to take any queries and questions on how it's evolved to date, and seeking the support to continue through to September at this time, with the expectation that it will continue into next year. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Steve. And again, I will invite non-members to speak by raising their electronic hand. Once non-members have spoken, I'll then invite members of the committee to speak. But again, I don't think any non-members have joined us. So over to members of the committee. And is that Councillor Gazzard? I think I saw your hand up first. I think you're on mute, Councillor Gazzard.
Thank you, Chair. First, can I apologise for being late? I was at another meeting early this morning. Yes, just on the pavement licences, Steve. I know that a lot of people, and I should declare an interest because I'm looking to hopefully hold an event on the Strand in Exmouth. But I know that other charities are also looking to maybe hold some sort of events on the Strand to raise funds for various charities. If the system as last year goes ahead, will the charities be able to use the grass areas, or will the cafes and eatery places take precedence over charities using the grassed areas as well? Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that inquiry. The situation in the Strand is I think the 3 to possibly 4 businesses that have got tables and chairs come under the sitting out consent that Street Scene have introduced with the same fee. I can't actually answer that query because we have an application further afield, but with regard to the layout of the Strand and those businesses on East Devon land, and it's not being a highway, it is one of the sitting out consents. So it would again be a query back to Street Scene and to Nick Christo and his team about the options either to move them or how charitable events would go ahead. We're certainly mindful from our experience in many years that a number of street trading events, charitable events go ahead in the Strand. So I think that's one back for Chris and the team, and I'm sorry that I can't fully answer that one.
No, thanks for that, Steve.
Thank you. Councillor Dent, you were next. Thank you.
Just a quick one. How much does the £100 fee cover our costs, and relative to the number of applications we are receiving?
That's a very valid question. Should it be a relatively straightforward application, we would potentially break even. There is a need we've found to have a visit. I think Exmouth Town had 2 consultations last year, and certainly the feedback on one of them was greatly appreciated. But in relation to the fee, for an application that moves through generally without representation and is good to go, we would probably break even. The additional work comes when there is an objection, potentially a refusal, and then there is the option for an appeal to a senior manager. And I would suggest that's probably significant time in addition to that £100 fee. So I hope that clarifies that question.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands up. So thank you for those questions. Therefore, we have a recommendation as per the officer's report. I'll propose from the chair. The recommendation is to note the content of the report, in particular the process of the district councils adopted in July 2020 by issuing pavement licences to businesses within the district. But recommendation 2 agrees the adopted application process will continue with licences being granted where suitable to 30th of September 2021. Do I have a seconder?
Yep.
Sorry, I didn't hear who said.
Happy to second if you want me. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Dent. And can we again vote using your green ticks?
One thing, Kim, if you're proposing something from the chair, it doesn't need to be seconded.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Wright.
I've got 7 in favour, Chair, so that's clearly carried.
Thank you.
Good.
Moving on to agenda item 9. Report on taxi and private hire vehicle statutory standards report. This is a further report from the licensing manager. So can I invite Steve Saunders to take us through this report? Steve, again, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This may well be a brief update. Thank you. Members agreed last meeting that we clearly, as a authority, need to adopt the national standards. It's for the safety of the public and being sort of very heavily driven by the Department of Transport. It was only shortly before the report writing and the report went out for this meeting that we received an update in relation to the expectation under point 6 of the report that there's an expectation for all councils to sign up to a database where we can share details of refused and revoked taxi driver licenses. So we have some costings literally just before the report went out that allows us to make some consideration in the year ahead. There isn't a Devon authority that's yet signed up to this database. And as you'll see under point 6 of the report, as well as having a signing on fee and an annual fee to join the database, some of the checking processes. So if we want to check a new driver or we have an issue, there's costs going up to £265 a time for each check. So it's something that this committee is going to have to give some clear consideration to, because there are quite burdensome costs really that will need to be considered over the course of the year. However, that's why we've given this process into 2022 to fully assess the standards against our own policy. We've implemented the change in the DBS process. So Lucy, my colleague who's online today, is now having those conversations each time an existing driver updates their DBS, they sign on for a very low fee, and then we can assist with the online check-in, and new applicants are doing that as well. So we are meeting that requirement. The other factor is that the lead for the Department of Transport, Baroness De Vere, wrote to all chief executives and councils just before Christmas, again with a little bit more of a nudge towards signing up towards the standards and keep driving forward with our progress, which we were already aware of. We knew that that would be coming, and this committee has already started that consideration. As regards new work, HMRC is seeking to consider a check where new taxi drivers or renewed taxi drivers sign up for a license, which again will be slightly more work for our officers to be involved in. It's early days. We've had a survey in that area of work. But today, really, the paper is just a very brief update, having only met last November, to assure the members today that officers have this piece of work as a key area for delivery. I anticipate now, having had some clear updates and some clear costs in the last month, that we'll be able to give you specific updates when we meet in April. And we'll start moving forward to when we may well be consulting with the trade and the key areas that will be adopted and when that will happen. So it's a cursory report to let members know that we haven't stood still, and some of the information gathering, some of the data that we needed has been provided, and we'll keep moving forward in the months ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Again, I don't see any members outside of the committee that have joined us, so I'll go straight to members within the committee. Councillor Tom Wright.
Thank you, Chair. And I apologise for referring to you as Kim in my last comment, just in case people are watching. Yeah, it's for Steve, really. I noticed that we're looking to join a national database. The effectiveness of a national database or any national organisation is how many other authorities are joining up, because if a lot of authorities choose not to join it, it is no longer a national database. Are you getting any feedback from colleagues as to how they might be viewing joining this national database scheme?
Yes, that's something that the Devon group that myself and colleagues attend is considering at the moment. And at the moment, we're one of those Devon authorities that haven't signed up to it because we were waiting for the information. It's a very valid point, because if there is any gap and we wanted to test, for example, an applicant from Lancashire or Norfolk, and that authority hasn't signed on or joined, it defeats the object. Another aspect to it as well is that for anybody that we've declined, or if a subcommittee has revoked, there is a data protection requirement that they give their consent to going on the database. So it may well be that, you know, if somebody is minded to be refused or revoked in one area and wants to go to the neighbouring district to apply or further afield, they may well not give that consent, which again potentially defeats the whole requirement of the database. So there's some aspects that I think we do need to consider, and I think over the next 3 to 6 months that will really start to form shape about how productive this could be across the country.
Interesting.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands up, and that report was just to be noted. So if there are no further comments from anybody, I will close the meeting. So that brings our meeting to an end, and I would like to thank everyone, including any members of the public watching online, for taking part. However, can I just remind all those present that the supporting officer will confirm when the meeting is no longer being recorded or going live, and until then your comments will be live to the public. Thank you.